All right, let's get started. So the warm-up, right? It's a quick review of what we spoke about a little bit yesterday. Yesterday, the assignment at the very end of the class was to do how to solve a matrix on the calculator. Right now, I know I introduced it. We only did one example yesterday. So the purpose of the warm-up is to sort of review that example. And then if you feel comfortable enough, we can get started with some actual practice, right? The biggest thing is going to be setting up the matrix. And then here we're going to review a little bit on how to put the matrix on the calculator so that the calculator can do all of that work. Okay, so let's get started. And if you have any questions, please just let me know as we move forward. Let's get started here with creating the matrix first. So we're going to go here. This website is called desmos.com/matrix. Okay, that's how you get access to this calculator. I also put it there in the warm-up and the title, this part here. All right, desmos.com/matrix. That's going to be where we can go in using our calculator. Desmos.com alone is a calculator on its own that you can use for graphing, for all that kind of stuff. And we'll be using the calculator this whole year. Desmos.com, we're going to use it all year. So if you want to put a tab or you want to save it as your favorites, you should do that. Desmos.com/matrix is just for this unit because this is the only unit where we actually deal with matrices and stuff. After this first 6 weeks or 9 weeks, we're going to be done with matrices. All right, so let's set this up, right? Remember that whenever we're setting up a matrix, this matrix over here has no variables and it's just the numbers, right? So we're going to look at making sure that everything is in the same order as X, Y, and Z. So I want to make sure that I have my X's in this column, the Y's, the Z's, and then at the very end, I have a number that correlates to that column. So in this first equation, right, the first row here, it's already in X, Y, Z format. So we just need to be able to remove the variables and take the coefficients. So here we would have a 2, we'd have a -1, we have a +5, and a +24. So we're going to put that in here underneath those variables. 2, -1, +5, +24. For the second equation, right? If you notice here, this is not in the same format, right? We don't have X, Y, and Z all in the same set of the equal sign. So we need to work with this equation first before we put it in here. Okay, so we're going to take the second equation and we're going to make it look like the first one. So one thing we want to make sure that happens is all the variables are on the same side of the equal sign and they're in the same order. So X has to go first, Y has to go second, and Z has to go last. So let's go ahead and convert the second equation. This right here. Just convert it to the other form. So we have Y equals -2Z plus 16. To move all the variables to the same side, we need to first get rid of this -2Z and move it over to the left. So if it's -2Z, to move it over, we do +2Z. We add 2Z to both sides. On the right side, this cancels. And now I have the variables on the left. But let's start with the variable X, because we need to have X first. Do we have any X values in this equation? No, right? We have no X values, which means we need to start by putting a 0x for the X value. The next variable is the variable Y. And here we have a positive Y, so we're going to put +Y next. And then the last variable is the variable Z. And notice how we have a +2Z, so we're going to put it here as +2Z. And that equals whatever's left over on the right. On the right, we cancel the variable, so we're just left with 16. Now does the equation have X, Y, Z in the same side? And does it have all the variables we need? Yeah. Now we do. So now we can actually take the 0, the 1, the 2, and the 16 and plug it into the matrix. We have 0, 1, 2, and 16. The second equation. And then we have our last equation. Our last equation, I'll change it colors here for blue, is 2z equals 8. This one is missing the x, it's missing a y, right? But thankfully the z is already on the left side, so we don't have to solve for z. So all we have to do is reword that one so that we include the x, we include the y, and the z just stays there. So whenever you don't have a variable at all, put a 0 in it, right? You need to have a placeholder for every single variable that we're dealing with. So it's going to be a 0 if it's not there, or whatever number is actually there. And now we can actually plug in this equation, right, into the third equation. So these two are identical. Do y'all see how they're the same? Are we okay with those two, how we converted the 2z equals 8 to 0x, 0y, and then 2z equals 8? Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So we're just manipulating these things to make them look alike, right? And now we're going to be able to plug it into our matrix. We have 0x, 0y, 2, and then the 8. Now that we have our matrix set up and we have a value for every variable and everything's organized with x, y's, and z's, now we use the calculator. This is where we go to Desmos, click on new matrix. This new matrix needs to have the same number of rows and the same number of columns. So we have 3 equations, so we need 3 rows. And then we have 4 columns. Now I know this is technically a 3 by 3, right? It has 3 variables, 3 equations, but this is a 3 by 4 because the 4th row is going to be where the answers come out, right? So we just need to add an extra row, an extra column for the answers at the end. And then we just transpose it, we move it over, right? Whatever we see here in our matrix that we created, just plug those numbers exactly the way they are, negatives, positives, in the same order into your matrix. And we have 2, -1, 5, 24. The second row we have 0, +1, 2, 16, 0, 0, 2, and 8. If you get a question wrong when you're dealing with matrices, it's probably because you messed up with like a negative number or you didn't have them in the same order, right? That's like the only way you're gonna be able to go wrong. The calculator will always get it right. So if you do a homework assignment, you're like, man, why do I keep getting this wrong? Check. Do I have all the x's, y's, and z's in the same order? And then am I typing in the correct numbers? Am I missing a negative? Am I, like, is there something that I'm missing here that I'm just leaving out that I'm not noticing? Are we okay so far with how to create the matrix?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Now we want to be able to solve it. And the solving button is down here. It's called row reduction echelon form, right? RREF. We spoke about this yesterday on how row reduction is the process of eliminating the variables to just 1s and 0s, right? We also spoke about this before on our last test, where we sort of did it by hand a little bit, right? So if you want to go to last week's stuff, you can go and you can watch the lessons for that stuff too. All you have to do is type in there which matrix you're going to be solving. So we're going to solve matrix A, and there it is. My answer is on the right. Now, how do we interpret this over here on the right? Okay, the way we interpret it is look at the first column. There's nothing in the first column, right, or the first row except for the number 1 and the number 6. So the last column will be your answers. This is going to be the answers of what you're looking for, the last column. The first column, the only letter that we have here is what letter? What goes in the first column?
X.
The letter X, right? The X we said was going to go always first. So when you see your matrix with a 1 here, we know that the 1 represents an X. X equals 6. If you look at the second column, we said that the second one was going to represent the letter Y. We took it out, right, when we did the matrix, but now we can bring it back in. So the second column represents y. So this 1 really represents 1y. That's what it represents. So y equals 8. And then the last column we said was going to always be the letter z. That's why we organize it in the very beginning, right? We organize everything in that order so that the last number represents z. So notice how there's a 1 in the bottom. There's a 1z showing up here at the bottom. So z equals 4. Now we're always going to write our answers in a coordinate pair or an order pair format, right? So technically our answer is going to be x, y, z. So 6, comma, 8, comma, 4. That is the solution to this system of equations. How'd that feel? So if you think about it, if you look at the matrix, right? X, Y, Z, it'll always be in the same order, right? You see those numbers 6, 8, 4, it'll always be in that format. So this actually saves you a lot of time. Instead of going through the multiple choice and see, does that work into my equation, right? Does the next one work in my equation? Going through A, B, C, and D takes forever. So if you can set up a matrix, then just find which one is it, A, B, C, or D. You can just match it up way faster. How does the calculator feel to you guys? Typing it in, creating a matrix. There's really only 2 buttons. One button is new matrix, right? Making sure that you have your 3 by 4. Type in your numbers. Once you have your numbers, then the next button is going to be, let's just make some numbers up. 1, 3, 2. This is going to be all weird because I'm just making numbers up. This is a B, right? The next button is RREF. So notice how this equation is called matrix B. So I'm going to type in the matrix that I used, and then on the right, it'll tell me the answers. This happened to be decimal forms because I made up the numbers out of the spot. But yes, this solved it for us. You just need 2 buttons. Click on new matrix, type in the numbers, and then RREF, and then put the name of the matrix that you use. Okay? I'll be putting like a step-by-step thing on YouTube. I'll make a recording of this on YouTube so that you can actually, so you can see this recording as well. But I'll be posting this recording on, I'll be posting it on the, on Schoology. All right, so the purpose of today is really just to practice, guys. I made 5 problems for an assignment where you get to practice putting it in X, Y, Z format, where you get to organize some answers and make them look the same. And if you're missing anything, then put zeros where you're missing them. And then really just, whenever you plug them into your answers, make sure you have them in this format, 6, 8, 4. Don't put any spaces, just put parentheses in the numbers and you should be good. If you get something wrong, right, on your assignment, then check back. Did I put X, Y, and Z in the same order? Sometimes they look like they're in the same order, but you just switch one of the numbers, right? So you just gotta pay attention to the variables and then things are gonna be okay. Any questions for today or what we're doing today? All right, so five problems. We have about 28, almost 30 minutes to do them. I think it's very possible to finish by the end of the period, right? You might even have some time tomorrow, sometime today to even work on some of the missing assignments that you might have. All right, so let me know if you need anything. I'll be here. I'm just gonna go ahead and mute myself, but I'll be here if you need anything.